Hello everybody, and welcome back to your computer science course. This is section 1, video 3, and today's objects are the following. Okay, so you're going to learn today you're going to learn your first function, which is function parentheses start, which I'll be explaining later on more of what that does. You're going to be learning your first Unity command, which is debug.log, in parentheses after that also. And you guys are going to learn how to do a little bit of math in Unity. You might be wondering, why are we doing math? Well, funny thing is that all of programming is based on math and like manipulation of numbers. So any effect you've ever seen in a game, typically there's some math equation that people just made up to make stuff happen. And it's not all of programming is math, so don't be turned off by that idea. But there is math involved, and it's only really basic level math. You don't really have to go into any complex math if you don't want to. That's the bliss of Unity. It lets you really avoid all of the high level mathematics that you'd have to suffer through if you wanted to make a 3D like application in something other than Unity. Okay, so now that you know what we're doing, we're gonna start up with Unity right here. So I'm going to launch Unity, and just give it a moment, and it will boot up. You can exit out of this. Okay, so back to our little environment. Remember this little place? Remember, if you're you should be in your scene view, so you should see basically this exact replica or something that similar that you've made. But make sure it has like 2 or 3 objects in it, something like that. And remember, if you need it, you can click to select objects. And if you want to move around, just right click and then WASD, and then look at that, you can move around. But yeah, so we're going to be learning some programming today. So let's go back to that first script we wrote, which was your var script. It'll be down here in the project section right here. If this isn't here, what you can do is go right up to window, and you'll see all of these. You can click project, and I already have one open, but if I were to close it, and let's say I could left click here. Actually, I could left click right here, or right click. Yeah, left click. And you could add a tab, which can be your project folder. And bam, there's a project folder. And I like mine right about, if I could get it there again, right about there. So there's your project folder. And so let's open up your variable script. And it's gonna go. And it's gonna open up. It's gonna bring up monodevelop, which we program in. Okay, so if you remember from last time, what we did was we defined 4 variables. Didn't really do much, but they existed, so that was nice. Today we're gonna be going over your first function. Now you're probably wondering, well, what's a function? A function is literally something that does something in Unity. That sounds really crazy, but that's actually what it is. And how you write a function, how you write your first function, it's going to look like this. It's you type in function, lowercase. You'll notice if you spell it wrong, it won't be blue, it'll be a darker blue, which you don't really want. You want a light blue like that. And then this function is called start. And make sure you have parentheses afterwards. Parentheses all functions have to have parentheses after them. Otherwise they're not functions, they're something else entirely. Now you're probably wondering, like, okay, that's pretty simple, but I saw those like other things underneath it. Well, those other things are called curly braces, and these are not parentheses. Parentheses are straight, curly braces they have a curl in their brace. And basically what this says right here is that inside this function start, we want to run everything at the start of the script. So when you turn on your game, the start function runs once. So so you're saying on the start, I want to run everything in between here to here. So all the code you want to do, you're going to run right here. So you're like, okay, now we know where we can put some code, so we can actually show an output of some sorts. And this is where our second command comes in line. Now, your second command is called the debug command. And you could type in debug. And it'll turn blue, knowing it'll denote that you typed it in right. It's a capital D, and just put a dot, and then you have. It might give you. You might have this box I have here. Oh, 1 minute. You might have this box right here. If it's not there, you can if I escape. If it's not there, you can click Control Space to bring it up. And if it doesn't bring up, it doesn't really make a difference. You can do everything without this little box. It's just for my convenience. And so our first debug command we're gonna do is we're gonna do debug.log. Parentheses, and make sure you end the line with a semicolon. Now, okay, so we ended with a semicolon. Now, debug.log is very simple. What it's going to do is that in Unity, whatever you put in here, in this little in between these two parentheses, it's going to send you a little message in the console in Unity, which is right here. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing here. And so we said we want to do a little bit of math. So the first thing we're going to do is well, we have two numbers here. We have 5 and 5.4. So let's actually make another value. We'll call this variable, and we'll call this answer. Let's not call it answer. Let's call it total. And we're going to save this as a float type. Okay. So now that we have our little total, what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to do math in Unity. So you might have noticed here is that I didn't give total a value. Well, that's because we're going to set it in the start function. So we're going to type in total, which is the variable name that we're going to be setting to, and just an equal sign. Now what this is going to do, it's going to say this thing on the left will equal whatever is going to go on the right. And what's going to go on the right is going to be, we're going to do, let's do our decimal number times, let's say 3.14 pi. So we're going to times it by pi. This is just a decimal approximation. There's ways to get more accurate representations of like constants in Unity, but that's for later in this video. Okay, so there we go. There is our number, and we just want to multiply that number by 3.141. And this is very arbitrary. You can multiply it by, say, 2.7 or even just 2, but let's stick with 3.14. So now we have our total, and all we have to do to show it in text is we could just type in log. We could type total, and if we save this, and we go back to our console, we run our little program here, and okay, so we didn't get any errors. And if you click the play button, it's going to run. And if you look down here, you should have 2 messages, because, oh, it could be 2, it could be 1. But we have it. So this is the messages we have. And remember, your decimal number may not be 5.4 because you can change it on the object, which is very important. Which is why we have 2 different values, because our game objects, if we go back to our screen, if we go back to our scene, our decimal number on this little cube right here is 6.2, and 6.2 times 3.14 is about 19, I'd say. And if we did it on this square cube, and 3.14 times 5.4, it is 16.9. It's roughly about that, which means that our code is working great. We have what we want now. So what I just showed you right there, you're probably wondering, and I'm just gonna stop that. I closed MonoDevelop by accident. So what we have here is we have this little multiplication sign. All of the math is very simple. If I wanted to add 3.14, I would just do a plus sign. If I wanted to subtract it, I would just do a minus. In fact, let's do our first keyboard commands too. So if you highlight all of this, you can click copy this way. If you see me highlight stuff and like recreate it, what I do is I click Control C, and then I just enter Control V to paste. And let's see what our decimal number is minus that. We already know what it is times, and let's divide it. Now you may be wondering right now, what's gonna happen? Won't it just display? Like, how is this gonna work right here? Well, you see, in programming, the language likes to work downwards, so whatever is on the top of your like little stack right here is going to display first. So this total amount's going to equal this. This is going to equal decimal number plus 3.14, and then you're going to display the total amount that's here. Then we set a new value to the total, and then display that new value. This is all this code is doing. And if we were to save this, we should get, I think, about eight or so things. Yeah, that's 8. You can check the number right there. And see, it gives us all these different values, which is just all the math we just did. Now, sometimes programmers get a little bit lazy, and we don't really wanna. We want to change total, but let's say we wanted to add really fast. Well, instead of writing like, well, actually, let's say you have total, and what you want to do is you want to take what total currently is, say what total is, and you're going to add like 5 to it. Well, there's a simpler way, a much simpler way of doing this. All what you got to do is just say total plus equals 5. And this is just shorthand. You don't really have to know this if you know that all of what this means is just total plus 5, and then remove the so those two things mean the same exact thing. And this works with subtraction too. You could also do total minus equal 5, or you could do total times equal 5, or even divide equals 5. In programming, you don't really want to use division equals. It gets buggy sometimes, so it's better just to type it out. And it's also, when I write total equals total plus 5, it's a lot easier to tell that this is, it's a lot easier to see that what we're taking total and adding 5 to it than in the other method. So a lot of programming is trying to make your code readable to you, but still make it understandable. And so in case you guys' code didn't work, you might get an error. So I'm gonna simulate like what some errors might be. Let's say you do this, you don't have a semicolon at the end of your lines, which is very bad. You put like a lowercase debug sometimes, and we'll say we missed out a parenthesis here. These are some very common errors. You'll see as I go along and write bigger and bigger projects. I'll occasionally forget a semicolon here, but I correct it immediately, hopefully. So let's just save these with errors in them, and let's just do a little debugging. Now you see, now we have this red line saying down here, if I get sticky notes out of the way, we have this little red line here, and it says we have errors in it. Now I'm gonna hide my what debug log is telling me right here. You can click it by clicking this white exclamation point, and then we have these 2 errors. And what's nice about it is that it says we have an error at line 13 at character 19. That's what the numbers inside the parentheses mean. And it tells us what script it is in. It says it's in variables. So if I clicked off variables, it'll even highlight what script it is in. Here it is. Okay, so now if you double click that error, it'll highlight the line. And then let's read our error. What does the error say? It says unexpected token total. Now, basically what that means is that you tried to send something to the editor that just didn't make any sense at all. Half a parenthesis total to a computer, that doesn't make any sense. So obviously, let's just close the parenthesis, and that should fix our error. And if I saved it, I save it, and now we have one less error. And if we click on the error, and it'll show us that, oh, you forgot a semicolon, insert one at the end of the line. So let's do that. And then, alright, so now you're probably wondering, well, we only had 2 errors before. We just made an error, didn't we? Well, sometimes in like the compiler, it'll detect different errors at different times. So first it will like browse through it to see if it's all like legitimate things you can put into the editor, and then it'll proofread itself, which is why we just found this error now. instead of before. So basically, all this one says unknown identifier, which means whatever this is, it doesn't know what debug is without a capital. So the easiest correction is to make it debug with a capital, and voila, we should have no errors now. And if you look back, give it a moment, and look at that, no errors, and we still have our log statements if we toggle this switch. I'll keep it on for now. Alright, so we have all these functions and things, but we want to do something to our object instead of just having it be boring. So let's say we want to move this object. Let's say if we open in scene, we want to move our object up by, we'll say, 5 units. What we can is this visible? 1 second. Let's go to game view. You see, you can see the little square thing there. This is the square, and if you move it up, you see that little shadow moves up and down. In fact, before we go any further, we're gonna add another game object just out of convenience. If you go to game object, you can add a light and make it a directional light, and you can just drag that up there really high. So you see my directional light's now at 37. It's really high. It doesn't really make a difference. But now our screen isn't just black, which is very nice. And it gives us a little bit more perspective in our camera view. And if this game view is a little too small for you, or you don't like the angle it's at, you can double click the main camera and it'll zoom out a little bit, so you can just go up to it and you can just move your main camera. Let's say we wanted the main camera to be facing the cubes from this direction right here. Just rotate it and rotate it by about 90. You'll see it comes into view. And let's give it a little angle downwards, because make a little perspective. And then just rotate it down. And you can tell by, you see this big white square in the scene view. 1 second. This big white square in the scene view is everything the camera can see. Now you could shrink it out so it zooms in, but we don't want it zoomed in right now. We want it a nice normal view. So this is what our game will look like in the view, which yeah, that looks about right. Let's change it just a little bit and move it here. I like that view. So we're sort of looking at it diagonally. Now we said we wanted to move our cube up by a few spaces. So you're probably wondering, well, in the inspector right here, I used to do that by editing this position. So do I just add 2 to position? Well, yes and no. We're gonna go in more depth to this, but basically, to move this object around, what you would have to do is you'd have to do transform. I'm gonna go in more depth in the transform function later, because it's just such an important function. It deserves a video on its own. But we'll say this, and then we're gonna add our, let's add our whole number. Yeah, we're gonna plus equal. This is where plus equal becomes convenient, because I don't want to rewrite transform position.x. But so just plus equal 5, and then let's close that. And we actually don't even need a debug statement here, because, well, we're gonna see what it does. If we run this, nothing happens. What happened? Oh, I know what happened. I accidentally I changed the x value and not the y value. So if you changed the y value, it should move up now. And there we go. And it should just look like it's a little bit higher now. And what happened? Why does this look differently? Oh, I see. Our right now our cylinder is below us because we moved both this platform, which has our strip connected to it, and the cube, which is very interesting. You could which is why your cylinder is probably underneath your platform now. So relatively though, this makes it look like we didn't actually move it all, and we moved the cylinder, which is kind of interesting. You think about it oh, did he just move the cylinder, or did he just move the 2 cubes? Which is the cool thing about games in 3D dimensions. by changing your perspective on it, you can really mess with people in some ways. Okay, but that's it for this tutorial. I'll just show you these basic math commands and introduce you into the idea of transform. We're gonna talk more about transform in the next video, so don't worry, stress too much on that. Actually, before we end, I'm sorry, I'm lying now. If you ever need to show a variable with words like a string, you can do it the same exact way. Just put debug.log, and just put our string name is words. So you could just send the words thing in here. And let's say you don't just want my name is Luke. You can also add things to the words. So like you could do like plus, and then you could put something in quotations. This is a string. Anything in quotations like this is considered a string. So you could put like plus his name is my name too. And if we were to save this, our debug.log statement would now say, you'd probably get two of them actually. It's compiling, and we run it. Our debug statement is going to say, his name is my name too, with whatever you have before it. So, for instance, words in our little cube, our cube right here, just say Luke. So, Luke, his name is my name too. And then for our platform is also sending a debug statement out. My name is Luke, his name is my name too, which is right here. And then just to tidy this up a little bit so we don't have not wrong things, but unexpected changes, we're going to remove the variable script from our platform. So now only our cube has this. And we're going to save it, and that's it for this tutorial. I'll see you guys next time.